Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Warp, peace of mind for your middle mile. Welcome everyone to another episode of the actually cut that shit. Fuck that. Welcome everyone to another episode of the FreightCaviar Podcast. Today's guest is Daniel Stoychev, one of the owners of Danieli Inc, a trucking company based out of Rolling Meadows, specializing in hazmat, reefer, and long haul loads. Thank you, Daniel, for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Paul. It's an honor.
How are you today?
Good. How you doing?
Doing great. I'm really excited for our podcast. We have a bunch of questions from Instagram from our followers, asking you questions, and I want to get to know you. You've been an entrepreneur for a long time. I mean, not a very long time because you're only 26, but you started at a very young age, at the age of 19. Could you take us back to I guess when you were 19 and give us kind of like your life till now?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Like you mentioned, I started at a young age. My official business started at 19, but before that, I've always been, inspired by business owners, and my family has been in business for many years in Europe, and once we came here as well. So I've been around it, so I knew this is what I got to do. I got to be in business for myself. I got to create things. I love just the whole concept of business, but specifically for trucking. My parents have been in trucking since we came to America in 2007. They started as drivers, and little by little, they kind of built a fleet that really put us on the map, in America as, coming from Europe and things like that. So when I was 19, I said, listen, my parents have this business. I know trucking. All right. I'm going to school, but I got to have a, business as well. I can't just go to school, and then I'm not the corporate type of guy. Okay. I want to go in business for myself. So, I knew this guy that ended up being my partner for quite some time. We got together. I was 19, he was 30, and got an office. I knew certain parts of trucking, but I didn't know others. So he was more of the dispatch side. We grew the fleet, that was the first company. We grew the fleet for about 3-4 years. We were partners. And then, couple years after that, kind of decided to go our own way. And now I'm on my second company, which was originally owned by my parents. They had to scale it down, and I took over with my sister. So that's kind of where everything began.
Sure. What have you learned from like that first trucking company, that the takeaways that you could, apply now to your business?
Everything was every day was a learning curve. We started, the business without knowing much about the business in depth. Every day was a journey, right? How to deal with the drivers, how to, deal with the shippers, with the brokers, the accounting, the factoring, the marketing, the recruiting. There's so many parts of it. So really those first 3 years, especially as a new entrepreneur, actually having to run this business, there was a lot of pressure, right? On top of that, we are in a challenging business and a challenging industry. So there was a lot of mistakes made. There was a lot of, like I said, learning curves, but everything that happened, I took as a lesson, right? So, hey, we effed up here, right? Or
could you give us some examples of like the lessons that you've taken?
Absolutely.
Like if, let's say, just for example, someone wants to start a trucking company.
Okay.
And they're like, they want to hear it from someone that's been in it.
Yeah.
What are maybe 3 mistakes that you've made, or 3 lessons that you've taken away that you could share with the audience?
Yeah. Top one is, not everything is what it seems, right? So you got to always think ahead of the curve, especially in this business with, lawsuits, with insurance, with, today you might have a successful business. Tomorrow, that business might come crashing down. So the biggest thing I learned is always be paranoid, all right? You got to be paranoid. You got to stay ahead of the curve, right? You don't know who's coming after you. You don't know what the drivers are doing on the road. So the more prepared you are for that aspect of it, right? Your safety's top priority, okay? Funding, can you sustain, like right now we're experiencing, obviously, the industry, a big dip in prices and everything. How are you prepared? So always thinking ahead of the game, and obviously being prepared for the worst case situation, because if anything can happen, is going to happen in this business. You know, it's a tough business to be in. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what have you done to kind of like, I guess, safeguard yourself to be more secure? You are paranoid, but with funding and with the current market that we're in, what kind of steps are you taking to maintain your business and grow it?
Sure, absolutely. So the biggest thing that we obviously, focus on, you got to keep the drivers happy. All right. That's number one. Without the drivers being happy, or without you even having drivers, there's nothing, right? So a lot of companies don't really understand that. We're not those types of companies that, get them in, get them out, get them in, get them out, right? We try to take drivers. We have a pretty intensive qualification process, right? We have to make sure that this guy getting in this truck, he's safe, his record's good. He's going to keep the best interest of safety and the company in mind, right? And it's not always so straightforward, but you got to focus on the drivers. So we do a really, really good job at that, screening them. So I would say, focus on retention, especially right now with the cost of everything. Keeping those drivers happy and just keeping them rolling on the road is huge. It's huge. So we really focus on that. Obviously, any business, not just trucking business in general, when things are good, you got to prepare for the bad. So one thing I've always had in my mind is, hey, listen, things are great. When rates were amazing, right? I mean, I know people buying, $1 million houses, taking out SBA loans, all this expensive stuff, but that's not going to end. I mean, that's not going to end well, Sure. That's going to only go down. So during that time, hey, I know this is going down. There's no way this is sustainable for the economy, right? And what happened? It went down, right? Yeah. So just being prepared during good times for the bad times. And, I hate to say it, but many companies are going out of business and will go out of business because they entered during the good time thinking this is the reality of trucking. And it's not like that, Yeah. So definitely, having funds is huge, all right? Mm-hmm. Having a backup safety net, nest egg to just kind of, hey, we're going to override this wave of downfall to stay in business because it's huge.
And how many trucks do you have right now?
Right now we have around 50 trucks.
50. And can you do the split? Do you run owner-operators, company drivers? Can you tell the audience?
Yeah, we do both. I would say probably about 40% of them are owner-operators. Okay. The rest is our company drivers. We also do lease/rental. So pretty much, we have partnerships with large leasing companies. Sure. And in essence, if somebody doesn't have a truck, right, they can come on board with us and rent it, not lease, not lease to purchase, but we do a renting program month to month, and it's it's phenomenal. It's great. Sure. A lot of guys who, hey, I don't have the funds, I can't put a deposit, I can't put a down payment. We qualify them obviously, but it's a huge part of our business, and to get good qualified drivers that want to be something, want to become responsible and have a truck, but don't have the means to get it.
Sure.
So
you have vans, reefers, and run hazmat.
Yeah. So we do dry van hazmat. We do reefer hazmat. Obviously, we do general reefer and general dry van as well. And now we're starting to also get into flatbed a little bit.
Oh, really? You have flatbeds?
Yeah. Okay. A little bit, but we're getting there. Yeah.
Got it. Interesting. Yeah. I'm also pretty fascinated with the hazmat stuff. Can you tell us more, about hauling hazmat? Do you have insurance requirements? You're obviously getting paid per mile more for hazmat loads. How's the hazmat market, and what are the benefits and cons of it?
So I would say, obviously, there's a lot of benefits. There's a lot of cons of it. The biggest thing is the safety portion of it, right? The easiest thing to do is to book a load, right? But are you prepared to haul that load? So in regards to insurance, we have proper insurance, right? That takes care of, God forbid, any pollution or any spills, anything that, explodes, right? That's huge. So that's definitely a con that, is the driver prepared to handle this type of load? Is he certified, right? All the drivers obviously have to be hazmat certified. So from a safety standpoint, everything has to be on top of it, right? I mean, I've known carriers that haul hazmat without having hazmat. How they get them, how they deal with that, I don't know. But, it's crucial. It won't get you far. But so safety is huge. Right now, to be honest with you, the hazmat is saving a lot of drivers. What I mean by that is dry van loads, as we all know, are, down the drain, all right? Sure. So you get 2 loads, that are paying above average, that can save your week. So right now, as a company, what we're really pushing for, and we're giving, great bonuses to our drivers to get hazmat, those that can, is, hey, get hazmat. get hazmat. You can do dry van, you can do reefer, you can do reefer hazmat with, the, October, November, obviously being here, they're going to start, a lot of protect from freeze, December, January. So having hazmat kind of puts you at the top in a way I look at it. We can switch you to dry van, do hazmat. We can switch you to reefer when the season comes along. So to drivers, I recommend if you can get it.
What do you need to get a hazmat license?
So the process is similar to, applying for like a TSA pre-check. They look at your background, right? Obviously, you got to make sure you don't have any. I don't know the exact details, but I know you don't. You can't have any crazy felonies.
Yeah.
Obviously, no. Acts of terrorism on the background and stuff like that. But they do a background check. You do fingerprinting. You got to test for it. Obviously, you got to make sure that the signs and all the placarding and all the requirements. So you do that, and it takes about a month. Okay. So we experience about, a month turnaround process with new drivers getting them. If you're a good driver, you can get it.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
Yeah.
And how long have you been in business in since Danieli Inc. started? How long has that been?
So Danieli Inc. itself started in 2007. Okay. Like I said, that was started by my parents.
Okay.
Yeah. So they ran that company for about, 10, 15 years.
Sure.
And they downscaled, and I took over that. So the business itself has been around since 2007. However, I've obviously been in business since 19. Took over Danieli about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And have you ever experienced like a DOT audit within a time period?
Within the year and a half, no.
Okay.
I was a part of one DOT audit, and it was due to, an insurance reason.
Sure.
Passed it with flying colors, no issues. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Our safety record on this company is A+.
Sure.
So yeah,
there's like a ton of regulations in this industry, right? I mean,
huge.
Right? Yeah.
Huge.
Like, how do you deal with that? The regulations.
Honestly, having a good safety team. That has always been, in any business, but in this business more than a lot of other businesses, having the compliance aspect is huge. Right. Yeah. So if you don't have that, you're going to last, 1, 2, 3 years until a big accident happens, until you get a DOT audit. It's not sustainable. So we're blessed to have an amazing, safety manager. She comes from, 15 plus years experience in safety recruiting. So she's on the team taking care of our safety right now. And obviously as we grow, we need to think about implementing, putting other people to handle different aspects of the safety. So to be honest with you, it's a priority, but it's not an issue for us. Like, keeping up with safety, that's,
Yeah. You have to get the right people for it.
100%. Yeah.
Always be on top of all the paperwork.
Absolutely.
It's a tedious job.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So on the flip side from safety, I guess, if we could talk about humor, we did talk earlier before we started recording about a funny story with a truck driver. Can you tell us some funny stories from being an owner of a trucking company?
Listen, there's more crazy stories than funny stories. I'll tell you that. At that time, they're not so funny.
They're not funny, but now they're funny.
But now they get to be funny. There's just a lot, but one of the more, recent ones, 2 of them that I kind of talk about with people every now and then, we hire one driver, and, we've been talking to him for weeks at a time. He's excited. He wants to do the rental program that I talked about. We've been talking to him. Hey, listen, we got brand new trucks coming. This would be great. He was a company driver. He wanted to become an owner operator. And, he's telling us, I'm so pumped. He's looking at our social media. He's talking to our recruiter. He's talking to me. He's texting me. He's telling me every week I'm going to a graduation party for my daughter. Like, he kind of became part of the team without being part of the team already.
Sure.
I'm like, all right, so this guy's coming on board. Great. Good, sounds like a good guy. The day, he comes to the day of orientation, gold teeth, right? Everywhere.
No teeth.
Gold
teeth.
Gold teeth, right? Everywhere.
Yeah.
He was from Texas. Gold teeth. Comes in there, Louis Vuitton bag, great. Thinking this guy has his stuff together. Louis Vuitton bag. Gucci flip-flops, beautiful. Sits down, does orientation. I wasn't a part of the orientation, but my team comes down there like, this guy is going to be a problem. All right, just be ready. He's going to be a problem. Nothing like he was on text. Nothing like he was on, the phone call. He was very humble on the phone calls and text.
Sure.
This guy's going to be a problem. Also, he's coming to ask you for money in a little bit, right? So cash advances, stuff like that is normal, obviously, in the industry, right?
Okay.
But you haven't even started. You haven't gotten in a truck. and you're ready. So I'm waiting, you know, to see what happens. So I'm in the office working. He comes by. He's like, hey, boss, I need to talk to you, you know. I'm like, all right. He's like, listen, I know your situation. You guys give, you know, after X amount of time, you know, to help out the drivers. But you guys will make an exception this one time, right? I was like, no, what are you talking about? You know, you're all the drivers, you got to treat the same way, you know?
Yeah.
So he's like, listen, man. He's like, my penthouse rent is due next week. He's like, my wife, he's like, she's calling me on the phone. She needs to pay the credit card bills. You know, I'm like, okay, how much do you need? And he's like, I need about $7,000. All right. So he starts asking for this money, right?
Yeah.
Like it's change. Okay.
Sure.
So I'm like, no, I say, I literally said, are you crazy, man? Like, we can't do that. $7,000. You haven't even started. We don't give in general $7,000, but you wanted to pay your credit card bills, your penthouse. He's got a penthouse. Truck driver's got a penthouse, right? So I'm like, all right, this was already, and I was this close to being, you know what, just don't even get in the truck, you know, because I know he's going to be a problem. So he's sweating up a storm. He's freaking out. He goes on the phone. I hear him talking to his wife or, you know, his girl. It's like, oh, they won't. You know, she got him riled up to ask us for this money already, you know. Yeah. So he comes back. He's like, listen, you know, she's upset. She found out that I bought my mother-in-law a $9,000 crocodile purse from Europe. You know, she's mad about that. We got to pay the credit card bill. I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, that's not, you know, what does this have to do with you getting in the truck and starting to work with us, you know? So I'm sitting here like this guy, you know? He gets on the road. He doesn't get his $7,000. He gets on the road, starts driving. Oh, by the way, you know, he was saying, just like many drivers say, he's going to be the best driver we've ever had. You know, great. Gets on the road. We get a call 3 days later from the Border Patrol in Canada. This guy went into Canada overnight because he followed his GPS, the fastest route possible. So he didn't have to go to Canada, right?
Sure.
So he went to Canada. Border Patrol, they're escorting him out, okay? While they're escorting him out, he blows out a tire, damages the trailer. I'm like, get this guy to Chicago ASAP, all right? He didn't even pick up a load. He knew what was coming. He drove all the way to Chicago. Next morning, I'm like, where's the guy? You know, did he pick up a load? What's going on? Trailer, truck left in the parking lot with keys on the ignition, cleaned out. And there was a book on the passenger seat. And the book's title was God Save Us All. Okay. So that had to be, you know, one of the most interesting. Yeah. I mean, this guy just came out of nowhere with all this stuff. Like, what is happening, you know? But yeah, I mean, you get crazy stories. I had another guy. He, you know, came to work with us. He was a driver for an owner operator. All right. So we had a small guy, small fleet that wanted to join our company, 5 trucks, you know, great guy. We decided, you know, hey, let's do this. Great partnership. He wanted to get out of trucking. He's like, I've got all the drivers. I've got everything in place. Just handle everything. Beautiful, you know. Driver comes to orientation. Again, this guy had Louis Vuitton shirt. I mean,
what's up to Louis Vuitton shirts?
These drivers dress better than, you know, than you and I, you know. So they're doing something right. So it comes to office, does orientation in the parking lot. We've got brand new 2023 Volvo trucks sitting there waiting for the drivers. Not this driver, but other drivers. So this guy, he's driving the owner-operator's truck, 2016 truck. Okay, so obviously he sees, you know, nicer truck. He's like, hey, boss man. He's like, you know, how do I get in one of these trucks? I'm like, listen, you're driving for this guy. I'm not, you know, I'm not going to screw him over to put you in, you know, that. He's like, all right. Well, he's like, if this truck ever breaks down, you know, he's like, I want one of those new trucks. Like, all right, we'll talk about it once. Let's get there, all right? So he comes in the building, does the orientation, all that good stuff, gets on the road. 5 miles down the road, not even, I get a call from him. He's like, listen, man, this truck is shaking left and right. He's like, the airbags are going up and down. He's like, I don't feel, you know, the fifth wheel is making weird noises. He's like, I don't feel safe in this truck. You know, what are we going to do? Obviously, he wants to come back and get a new truck, you know?
Yeah.
So I call the owner. I'm like, listen, call this guy. You know, he's mad. I'm like, are you, you know, kidding me right now? Like, obviously, he's doing this on purpose. We bring him back. I'm like, what's going on, you know? He's like, the truck, I don't feel safe. They get in an argument. The owner leaves. You know, I'm trying to save the situation, right? I'm not just going to put this driver on, you know, go home. At the same time, you know, I want to make sure everybody's happy. Put him in the truck. Starts driving. He's a company driver, all right? So doesn't have much choices as to, hey, I don't want to go here, I don't want to go there, So he gets in the truck. Dispatcher calls me. He's like, hey, listen, this guy said he can't take a load to Kentucky. I'm like, what's wrong with Kentucky? He's like, I don't know. Call him, see what's going on. Call this guy. He's like, listen, man, they're racist over there. I'm not passing through Kentucky. I'm like, it's like in the middle of the, what do you mean? We can't send him a load. I'm like, all right, we'll cancel this time. All right. Next time, no. He books him a load to Louisiana. Can't go to Louisiana. He's like, they look at me funny at the truck stop when I eat my food. I'm like, what are you, where are we supposed to go? Keep you in Illinois? He's like, you know what? My mom always told me, why do these companies keep firing you? You're such a good driver, So obviously, you've got to be the problem,
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what, man? This is not going to work out. I said, I'll just come back to Chicago. She's like, all right, I'll come back to Chicago. Comes, calls me again. He's like, listen, man, I don't want to lose my job. You're losing a good driver. He's like, I'm a veteran. I've been around, driving for 10 years. I'm like, listen, you don't want to drive here. You don't want to go drive there. What are you supposed to do? I'm supposed to keep you local, get a local job, So he agrees, comes back to Chicago, delivers in Chicago, calls us, and he's like, we told him come to the office so we can talk. All right. I said, come to the office. We need to talk to you, obviously. Was going to try to give him a second chance, talk to him what's going on. He's like, listen, I'm not coming to the office. He's like, I'm on California. I'm going to leave this truck opened up, by the jail. He's like, so they can destroy it. And we're like, all right, whatever you decide, just let us know where the truck is. That pissed him off, that we're so calm about the situation. So I'm like, all right, that's fine, do it. He's like, no. Better yet. He's like, I'm going to call the news station. He's like, and I'm going to tell that you guys are firing me. I'm like, all right, do what you got to do. He's like, no. He's like, I got an idea. He's on the phone telling us this. He's like, I got an idea. He's like, I'm going to blow it up. He's like, I'm going to blow the truck up. I'm like, all right, let us know where you blow it up, Yeah. So we come get it. Hangs up the phone. In an hour, we get a text message. I'm so sorry. The truck is parked at the truck stop. It's cleaned out. The keys are, where they are. Send the driver to pick it up. I'm sorry this didn't work out. Like.
Did you go pick it up? It was all good?
Picked it up. Everything is good. But, why? Stories like this, man.
Mental problems, drug problems.
So that's a huge thing. Yeah. That's a huge thing. I mean, we, in the past year, year and a half, obviously when kind of the rates started, mainly this past 6 months, we've noticed a lot of drivers have a very difficult time. I mean, it is a hard job. I mean, my parents, like I said, are owner-operators. So a lot of these guys, they're stuck in the truck. They are, the only person they're talking to is, maybe a family member and then the dispatcher. So, something's bound to click every now and then and say, hey, frustration, all this stuff. We've had a lot of guys, reach out to us and say, hey, guys, I'm having certain temptations, or I need to get off the truck, or whatever it is. So that actually prompted us to develop like a mental health and wellness program within the company for drivers. So not only do we provide them resources that they can go on their own, obviously they can always reach out to us and we can find them, anything, a facility, that can, if they want to do that and kind of, you never know what's going on, in someone's mind.
Totally.
So it's a huge problem, but we kind of found a solution for a lot of guys, give them options for that. So
yeah, people don't realize how lonely of a job it is.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I mean,
it's really tough. I mean, I drove last Friday from Cleveland to Chicago with a truck driver, and great guy, company driver. And it was just like, he liked us because we were talking to him. He has a dog, so he kind of keeps him in company.
Sure. Yeah.
But like, I was like, just thinking to myself, I'm like, I can't imagine like being on this road. Like he's driving, like he goes once a month back to Florida.
Okay.
He's an Army Reserve. So he has like Army training. And like, besides that, he's driving the whole time. And I'm like, I can't imagine being all over the country, just driving like with my dog, if there's like a team and I was there with like maybe my girlfriend or my wife, that's fine. But other than that, I feel like it's a very difficult job and people don't understand it. They don't respect or appreciate the driver for what they're doing. So
yeah, it's a huge weight right on their shoulders in regards to obviously being on the road for so long. And you know, I mean, again, like I said earlier, we've had so many situations where guys are like, hey, I'm losing my mind out here. You know, we had one guy, unfortunately, you know, we had to let him go for certain safety reasons, but he was in the truck for 6 months at a time. Young guy too. He was in his early 20s. He's like, hey, I haven't seen my wife, my fiance. I haven't seen my family in so long. You know, we were watching on the video, you know, facing forward, like he was falling asleep and things like that. So I'm like, hey, what's going on, man? You know, like, you know, one, it's a safety concern. Two, it's, you know, what's going on with you, right? Are you okay? You know, we try to approach it in a way that's, you know, because again, it's a tough thing to do. So he's like, listen, I'm falling asleep. I'm tired. He's like, I'm trying to make money. I'm making money, but at the same time, I'm lonely. So it's just, you know, they're driving down the road thinking about all these issues, thinking about, you know, what else do you do but drive and think, you know? So it's not easy.
So, I mean, just from being an owner of a trucking company, that must be like, you must have learned a lot. Just like from telling these stories, like, you know, you could probably notice or spot something from like a behavior that others maybe can't pick up on. From like, you know, talking to people. That's really tough though. Like being an owner of a trucking company, dealing with drivers that have, you know, issues and like come to you and like they take your truck that's worth $100,000, if not more, on the road, and they're like, I'm gonna go blow it up. It's
the
crazy.
Biggest, you know, I always tell, because I've had so many people call me, you know, friends and, you know, people that I know that I'm in the industry. They're like, hey, listen, I'm going to start a trucking company. I'm like, great. You know, what's your plan and all that stuff? And he's like, well, you know, I decided to do this because I saw one guy who was driving like a brand new Mercedes and, you know, there's a lot of money in it. I'm like, yeah, but do you know, the list is, you know, hundreds of pages long of what can go wrong, how you have to do things to make sure that, you know, you keep things in order. It's people look at just the money, you know, but there's a lot of responsibility. Every day you're, you know, thinking, okay, is this guy going to kill somebody on the road, you know? So, and who takes all that responsibility and stress? Obviously the owners of the company, you know, any driver, any employee can just leave, go to another company if, you know, the fan blows up, but you know, everything comes down to the owner. So you're always at the crossroads between, you know, providing good service to your customers, keeping the drivers happy, keeping the government happy and out of your back, you know, staying in business, right? So it's huge. Yeah, it's huge responsibility.
How do you deal with like that stress? Like, what's like your like process in terms of like handling, you know, when things get stressful? What's your action? Like how do you calm yourself down? How do you get focused, and what do you do?
It's not easy. I'm going to start with that. All right. So, especially if you want to do things the right way, right? I've met guys that just simply do not care, right? They're on to the next company or that next MC. And, you know, there's different types of way to do this business, right? There's trucking companies and then there's trucking companies, you know? So it's stressful because, like I said, you know, I'm perfectionist in a way. I'm paranoid about certain things. So they have to be done the right way. So when something happens, you always think worst case scenario. So the stress of it, right, you got to love, in a way, you got to learn to love the business. That's huge, right? Because with anything, if you don't like what you're doing, everything is going to be stressful, right? One thing goes down, you're like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? You know? But the way I handle stress is, hey, look at the big picture. You know, what's my vision? Why did I get into this business in the first place, right? I need to be here, right? This is just a little obstacle, you know, on the way to where I need to be. But also, you know, you have to have an outlet, right? I mean, you have to do things with family. You have to do things with friends. You have to talk to other people that are going through the same thing in the industry, right? So it's not also, you know, shiny that everyone looks on the outside. All these people are in the trucking business making all this money. Yeah, but at what cost? You know, what got them there? You know, and like I said, there's trucking companies and then there's trucking companies. You know, guys that
have 10 MCs.
You know,
well. We have a lot of Instagram questions to go over. Are you down for some Instagram questions?
I'm down for some Instagram questions. Cool. Yeah, let's do it.
Let's see here. So, username ve.sue. Do they run more dedicated, or do they rely on the spot market? Also, do you have more company drivers, owner operators? What are you?
So I would say,
calling?
So I would say right now about 30 to 40% of it is contract / consistent, dedicated. What I mean by that is we have, you know, very good relationships with certain brokers. We have a gentleman that's a part of the company internally that has a lot of good relationships and connections specifically for reefer and hazmat freight out of the Midwest. So that's really huge. I mean, that's huge. I'm not going to lie about it. Everything else, obviously, you got to rely on the spot market as well to get back to the home base or wherever you need to be. So I would say it's about, 30, 40, 60, 70 split.
Okay.
In regards to the company drivers, owner operators, I would say, we do about, most of them are about, 70% of them, I would say, are about company drivers. Everything else is owner operators.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question is, how did you scale your business? This is from Frankie9267.
Frankie, how did I scale the business? Yeah. So obviously I told you, I had experience. The biggest thing, it's obviously easier the second time around, but vision, right? I mean, it kind of sounds cliche, but you have to have a vision, right? And then once you have the vision, you put the pieces together. Marketing, right? Recruiting the right people in the right places, and just taking it one day at a time, yet having, a vision for where you need to be. Sure. You got to be prepared. You can't just go and say, hey, tomorrow I'm going to have 100 trucks. That's it. How are you going to get there, right? What's going to be the plan? You have to have things in place in order to, grow. I would definitely say, again, this goes for any business, not just, in trucking, is, have that cushion, right, for when things get tough, so that the work you just did to get to a certain point doesn't go, wasted. Yeah. But you just go over the cycle and keep growing, keep getting where you need to be.
Sure.
Yeah.
Alan Mass is asking if you're hiring.
We're always hiring qualified people. I love this quote. I don't know who said this, but it's never the wrong time to hire the right person. All right. So
there's also another quote that I've heard. Hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah. Yeah, take your time. Yeah. I mean, we've gone through our fair share of not only drivers, but, obviously people in the office as well. I can talk all day about funny stories when it comes to that, but it's tough to find good people, right? I mean, I do also believe that everybody can be replaceable, right, when it comes to doing certain tasks. However, you're not always hiring just for the skill. You're always hiring a lot of times for the potential as well, right? So you might, be an amazing person, be ambitious, not have the skills, but you can get to the skills if you have the necessities, as a human being, to be able to learn and, have the drive. Thing. So, yeah.
Totally. Let's see here. Lime_liberation. What will make you be dedicated to a line if the rates are average, not the highest? So
I love these names, by the way. Lime Liberation.
Yeah. So real quick, the question from Lime Liberation is, what will make you dedicated to a lane, even if the rate is just average and not like the highest rate that you could get?
So if I'm understanding this right, why would I take a dedicated lane even though the rate's not perfect?
Yeah, over like a lane that, over a non-dedicated lane, a spot rate that's higher.
So we get offers all the time, as I'm sure many companies do. Emails full with, hey, dedicated offers, give us your bid, give us your bid. At the end of the day, I can be getting, hey, I'm getting so many opportunities, right? But what are we acting upon, and does it make sense, right? So I'm not going to just quote somebody, just barely covering my expenses and commit to that and not be able to, keep the business afloat. So it's got to make sense. However, removing greed, you got to remove greed aside when it comes to, okay, we're going to build a relationship with this lane, with this shipper, with this broker, whatever, right? Is there potential for more? So, hey, I might get this week higher spot market rates, but listen, I got a contract here that can last me 1, 2, 3, 4 years, right? For example, down the line, with a good potential shipper that I can get more drivers on there, then yeah, obviously I would take something like that if it made sense. But we always look at the numbers, right? Yeah. So I'm not going to do it if I'm losing money and I got to, especially during these times. So
we're also looking at the big picture to 100%. See how it plays into it, which is very important being an owner.
What's the potential relationship we're going to get from this? So you got to read, between the lines and think ahead of the game, not just for what it is.
A lot of people are short-sighted in this industry.
Well, because they're in it for the fast money. And, again, I've seen that come and go, and, comes with its challenges.
Definitely. Vardanyan_7, is hazmat profitable, and how are they hiring only hazmat? Or wait, What is this question?
Yeah, so we don't hire hazmat loads.
Yeah. Wait, is hazmat profitable? I'll just answer that. Is hazmat profitable?
Yeah. Vardanyan 7, yeah. Interesting. So hazmat is profitable, like I said earlier when you asked me about the type of freight we do. Hazmat right now is keeping a lot of guys afloat.
Yeah.
Hazmat, in my opinion, is always above, if there's always going to be, ups and downs, but generally speaking, when you look at the numbers, there's always going to be a tier above just regular, freight.
Totally. Do you know like the averages per mile on a hazmat to try?
Right now, I would say we're getting, and again, there's a lot that varies, but I would say anywhere we try to be, $2.90 to about $3.50 a mile. That's
for hazmat.
For hazmat,
and
yeah.
What about like a regular drive-in or reefer?
It's definitely decreased, right? I would say right now we're seeing, on average, 230 to 260. It really varies, but I would say 230 to 260 is about.
Do you know what your costs are per mile? Like how much stays?
Yeah, I mean, I do know them. They obviously fluctuate. It's not always going to be the same.
Sure. What is it around?
Certain things. Cost per mile in general? Or?
Yeah, when you add like the fuel, the insurance, like the overhead, like do you...
I mean, sometimes it's going to be that.
Yeah.
230.
Especially with inflation now, gas being high.
100%. So, sometimes, again, going back to, the rate per mile, and it can be a little deceiving, right? When you talk about the averages. So we really take a look at, okay, this week's average is this, right? Oh, that's horrible, right? This is the week. You got to look at it in quarters. So we look at it in quarters, right? What was last, we don't take really week by week. We take the, past 3 months. All right, what was it? Hey, these 3 weeks could have been amazing, right? Then they balance out the next 3 weeks that were not so great. So we try to look at it in quarters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you look at like stats a lot? Are you like going through like the statistics of like how much everything costs?
Yeah, we look at, obviously we look at our internal like KPIs and stuff, but we look at, obviously, got to stay up to date with the diesel. We look at obviously where internally, like where are drivers fueling? Okay, how can we, have them, be better about that? Even, company drivers also that are not so motivated to have the company's best interests when it comes to, things that, hey, I don't need to, save this company more money. I can fuel at the most convenient place, right? How do we motivate the guys? So we track a lot of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Utilization. One great thing that we're actually working on right now is partnering with a company that does freight analytics and statistics. Okay.
Which company? Are you able to say or no?
Well, yeah, it's Freight Waves.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah,
Sonar. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I just didn't know if I was able to say.
No,
that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I write articles for Freight Waves.
Okay, great. Yeah, Freight Waves.
Yeah.
So we started, looking into that.
Sonar.
Sonar. Yeah. There's a lot of potential there.
Okay.
For that. So things like that, like how can we do things and stay ahead of the game on an industry level? Look at the big picture in order to keep the business running.
Totally.
Yeah.
Dejan Pop is asking, when are you going to go out of business?
Never. We're not going out of business. I love the smiley face at the end, though.
Yeah, the laughing smiley emoji. Manmeat9110. What is the worst issue that you had on a hazmat load?
Oh, goodness. One of the most recent ones, I wouldn't say we've had, knock on wood, too many, big issues. One of the, and this, I guess, kind of funny too, but one of our best drivers, right? This guy's, I wish I can, copy this guy into like,
clone him.
Clone him.
clone 1,000 of him.
I
know what you mean by that.
So I get a call. I think it might have been early morning, middle of the night. Because sometimes I'll pick up the after hours number. Pick it up on what's going on. So there's, like a leak coming out the side of the trailer, a red leak,
Yeah.
So I think this guy, maybe he was hauling, some red paint or something. I'm not sure what the product was. There's a leak coming out. Nothing major, but it's coming out of the side of the trailer somehow through the wood,
Sure.
Broker's not picking up though, right? To say, hey, we need to cut the seal to see what the hell's going on in here because this can be something serious. I give him the number for the hazmat. He's like, listen, the product is not flammable. It's not dangerous. So like, let's see what happens, right? broker's not responding to give us permission to cut the seal. I'm like,
Yeah.
just cut the damn seal. I said, don't like, I'm not gonna wait for the broker, but something huge can happen, right?
Sure.
So we cut the seal. He gets inside the trailer. He's like, listen, it's in the back. This whole like tube, not
Sure.
tube, this like a big barrel, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, when I made a turn, I guess it shifted, came off the pallet, and it's spilling, you know, all this stuff. He's like, but I can clean it up. I'm like, don't clean it up. It could be something bad, you know?
Yeah.
So I ended up, I forgot what the product was, not being anything too crazy. But he wiped it down, he cleaned it up, and so it was red paint everywhere, all
Okay.
right? So he's got dripping red paint all over him in his hands, all right? Sends me a picture later, but he goes inside the truck, stuff like this, all right, to wash his hands. And they freaked out. The security guard came by him, and he was like, what's going on? You know, they thought he killed somebody, right?
Sure.
So that was, you know, the most recent thing. But we really haven't had anything too major again, knock on wood.
Okay. It's funny with the driver.
Yeah.
Red hands going in. Okay, question from my good friend Boris Panov. Who is doing your driver's statements or your accounting stuff, and can he offer you his services?
One thing I told myself and, you know, my business partner, my sister, now that we work together, said, never will I use outside services like that get to control such an important aspect of the business, the finances, right? So I don't believe in outsourcing things like that anymore. You know, safety, you know, somebody doing statements for me, recruiting, right? There's benefits to it, but personally, I'm not a fan of that. We're doing everything internally. And just to kind of touch base on that, it's great, the outside services for smaller companies, couple trucks, right? You know, they can't hire somebody to handle all this full time. But there's no way that these companies care about the business and look through it the way we would, right?
Sure.
So it's crucial to, you know, for me to have 100% control over that.
Yeah.
So no, I'm not interested in outside services.
Sorry, Boris.
That name sounds familiar, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, no, Boris Panov is a great guy. He's from Macedonia. He's
Okay.
big on LinkedIn, and I visited him and his company, Superior
nice.
Dispatch Services, out of Macedonia. They have like 80 people.
Yeah, I
great
think I've heard
company.
of him.
Yeah, good people. Sodiq XO is asking, how are you surviving with the current market?
I think if you listened from the beginning up until now, it's kind of going to answer your questions. Again, I'm just going to touch a little bit on that. You got to be prepared. Prepared during the good times for the bad times, because they're always coming.
Oh.
I'm going to tell one quick story about this, if you don't mind. I worked for a guy before I got into trucking when I was in high school. Real estate guy, had about 30 buildings in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. Very successful guy, right? Had a lot of other businesses. He was in his early 70s. Working like crazy. You know, he had the suit, but he had tennis shoes, running around, like micromanaging, which could be good or bad, right? And he said, listen, he was very into like finance, economics. He's like, listen, I want to write a children's book one day, okay? I'm like, all right, you know. He's like, maybe you can help me. I'm like, all right. I'm like, what's this children's book going to be about? He's like, and this is, somebody very successful, right? He's like, economics 101 is, he's like, when I was a young guy growing up on my grandfather's farm, he's like, huge field, right? He was collecting hay. Everything was great, right? And then he goes, the hay, he sells some, and then, he gives it to the animals, and then the rest he puts at the top of the barn. He's like, Grandpa, what's that? Why is there so much there? What do he's just sitting there. He's like, things are not always going to be so shiny outside, and there's not always going to be. And he's like, that following year, huge drought came and all this stuff, and the guy couldn't produce, but he had all this saved up and fed his animals, right? Okay. All the other farmers folded, Why? Because when things are tough, when things are good, you got to prepare for the tough times.
Moral of the story to save.
Moral of the story, yeah.
Save that money that you made.
100%. Yeah.
And
reinvest it. Think about the bad times. I can't say that enough. Right now, I'm sure all these viewers and listeners and stuff are gonna, know what I'm talking about. So.
Sure. Like that story. We have a question from Ilya.Nelubin. What is the most important quality for your employees that you look for?
That I look for? I always ask kind of the same questions in the beginning, anybody that I'm hiring. And this is not about drivers, specifically about people in the office and, people that I'm working with is, where do you see yourself? Again, it's going to sound cliche, but you can tell exactly by the, where do you see yourself in, 1, 2, 3 years? Anybody that says, oh no, I'm just in it for the money, or like, this is just probably won't hire that guy. I'd rather do that job for right now myself.
Sure.
So, you want to see people get excited about what they're doing. Right. I mean, this is a tough industry. Not everyone loves to be in it. A lot of people are in it for the money. Right. But you got to have some sense of like dedication and vision to the industry. Right. And that's huge. So really kind of drive and dedication to the industry and to the, to what they're doing.
To pick on that, I actually, when I was in Ukraine, I had like a team of like, well, this was actually when I had like a team of 30. I eventually built it up to like 100 people, but it was like one time I was really busy. There was a lot of freight to cover. I was stressing out, and like the HR lady came up to me. She's like, "Paul, you have an interview for a tracking position." I'm like, I was really busy, and I'm like, "Is it okay if she just sits next to me?" And so she came by, sits next to me on my computer, and I'm like, "Oh, so do you speak English?" And she's like, "Yeah, I speak English." And then she looks at me. She's like, "I really want this job." And I look at her like, "You really want to become a tracker?" She's like, "Yes, I really want to become a tracker." I'm like, "You're hired." That was the
you don't even need to ask more.
She was, I could see in her eyes that she would really want to do it. I'm like, that's honestly too easy, especially since it was like, kind of a pretty basic position.
Yeah.
Tracking is not difficult. And, it's true. Like when I saw those eyes light up, I'm like, she's the one for it. And she was actually really good at it.
It's very rare to find good people and people that actually like internally, they're, hey, I want this, like you said, right? And so it's like a no-brainer, right? We'll teach you, just start.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Daniel, another question.
Yeah, tell me.
Do you not want to leave the trucking business in this current market? I guess it kind of picks up from all of the stuff we said, but do you ever want to like just quit and leave?
So, right, you said quit and leave, right?
Yeah, like do you ever want to leave the trucking business?
Right, but I'm saying
with the current market,
quit and leave. I just don't like those two words together, right? Quit and leave. No, we're not quitting. We're not leaving. We're not shutting down. Do I want to do it? There's days where I'm like, what's the point, right? Like there's so much on our shoulders, and then you're fighting against, sometimes you're losing, right?
Sure.
No, I don't want to leave. It's again, talking about vision, I have a vision for where I need to be, where the company needs to be, where I want to, take things. And that's kind of what's keeping me a lot of times in business. So you gotta focus on the, on the long road ahead. However, I don't blame a lot of people that are in it 100% for the money in a short-term gain. Yeah, leave and then go do something else, Sure. If you're not making money, obviously, right? Yeah. So everyone's got a different agenda.
Sure.
In a part of the business.
Could you tell us what that vision is?
For Danieli?
Yeah.
For me? Oh, man. We got a couple weeks.
Couple weeks?
I can be here all day. No, so, there's a lot. Obviously, specifically for the company, we have a goal, metrics that we need to be. The goal is to be at 100 trucks by the end of next year in order to satisfy the customers we have now and kind of grow into where we need to be, right? So I think we're on the right track. We're also expanding into a location in Dallas and also partnering up with an investor to start a brokerage as well. So we're working on that. So really the goal is to kind of, double in a way within the next year and a half, really have a stable relationships with our customers, with our drivers, with everybody that we kind of work with, right? Like I said, we're looking for long-term. We're looking to be in business for long-term, right? So how do we get there faster so that we can make it happen and have enough time to kind of, trial and error a lot of things.
Definitely.
So for the business, that's it. Personal things, I obviously like to be involved in other industries, right? But to get to there and to get to where I need to be, you got to, take care of currently what's happening.
Sure. And you said you're building an office in Dallas. Can you tell us why you chose Dallas?
So I think, the idea came about because a lot of our drivers, I'm noticing a lot of the applicants, right? They're coming from the South, right? Okay. So a lot of times these guys are coming to us from here, whether they're owner operators or truck drivers. Hey, I'm from Dallas. I'm from Houston. I'm from Texas. I'm from Florida, right? So they're coming up to here. So, hey, one, we're going to save costs on recruiting and hiring by being physically located there. Sure. It gives us a presence where, hey, stop by the office, shake our hand, see us. Additionally, other strategic reasons, equipment and, possible shippers that we're working with. So I think it just only makes sense to kind of have that, connection. We've got an office here, we've got an office here. So it's a strategic approach, pretty much. Sure. It's not just, hey, let's go to Dallas.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, Daniel, those are basically the questions that we had. Do you have anything else you want to say or talk about?
No, I mean, I think we've covered it all. It's been a pleasure, obviously, being here and answering all the questions and kind of telling the audience a little bit about us. So it's been great. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. If there's any way to reach you, like, do you want to tell the audience how to get in contact?
Yeah, I mean, you can share my email.
Okay.
You can share my email. They can obviously find the company name, DanieliUSA.com. Or stop by the office, check us out, have a coffee, have an espresso in Rolling Meadows. yeah. So
there we go. But yeah, cool. We could like, well, it's still recording now, but when my videographer takes it, we could cut it from there. But we could also just keep talking now because we have like some time.
Okay.
And maybe some funny things will come out of it.
Yeah.
Is there any, just like pretend like as if we're not recording?
Yeah, I'm trying to think right now. Anything funny?
Any other crazy trucking stories?
What's up?
We want to hear some more crazy trucking stories. Daniel, hit us with some crazy trucking stories.
All right, let's see.
Or employee stories. Or employees.
I do have an employee thing. So we're growing now, right? So this was like, 3-4 months ago, we're growing. And I had my ELD guy that takes care of all the ELD stuff overseas. Yeah. All right. Great guy, really educated guy, talking about, people that want to work. This guy was available 24/7. All right. He was always in front of the computer. He was sending us updates, alerts, like all this. He was amazing guy, right? But I'm like, listen, a lot of the drivers are starting to say, hey, like, where's this guy? Where's this guy? He's like a ghost. Like, when are we going to meet him? I'm like, you're not going to meet him. He can't get a visa to come out here.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we got to hire somebody internal in the office to handle the EOD stuff. Post an ad, do some phone calls. This guy, and I hope he's hearing this because, I want him to, fix his way of doing things. But so he comes, talk on the phone, great guy, decent experience. I'm like, this is not, rocket science, right? If you have experience with it, you can pick it up, just move it on to companies and, getting to know drivers. So this guy's coming for an interview. He's standing in front of the door, because he got there before me at my office. Out there, super long hair, right? And nothing against it, but wait till you hear the story. Super long hair, like baggy pants, skateboard sneakers falling apart, an old sweater. I'm like, okay, this guy's maybe going through something. No judging book by its cover. Let's start talking to him. Great guy. Ended up, speaking during the interview very nicely. Okay, I'm like, all right, this guy's just, trying to, I don't know what he's trying to do, but he's trying to fix something in his life, right? Trying to get a new job. Like, let's do this. Let's try it. I hired him, gave him a chance. First day on the job, right? He comes in, just goes to the office, gets to kind of look at the EOD system. No red flags, nothing. Second day, my safety manager was like, hey, this guy, I stepped out of the office. She's like, this guy wants to leave. It's 11 o'clock. And he wants to take the computers home with him. So I'm like, absolutely not. What's going on? Well, he said he doesn't have a computer at home. He wants to I'm like, he physically wants to take the whole monitor system home with him? She's like, yeah, he wants to take it home. I'm like, no, So I come in the office. He's still there. He's like, hey, like, can I take it? I'm like, why, He's like, well, I don't have a computer and all that. So I'm like, you don't need to work from home. That's fine. It's just, come tomorrow. Or I said, I have an old laptop. I'll give you the laptop. Takes the laptop. Fine. No, he's working. I'm noticing he's coming, sometimes later than he should be. I'll step out of the office for meetings. My safety manager's like, hey, this guy is like either coming with like his hood on and just sketchy guy. I'm like, what the hell is going on? What's going on here? Certain odors of things that people smoke. Right. I'm like, what? Drivers are calling me and they're like, hey, this guy like So I noticed he's got like a temper, you know, like he's like, you will not do this, like on the phone with drivers.
Okay.
I'm like, all right, this guy has got to go. Well, I was getting married actually I was in Mexico getting married, and you know, my safety manager's like, hey, this guy hasn't been here all week. He said he's sick one day, this is sick, that's sick, you know. I'm like, all right, we'll take care of him. I get back. I'm, you know, like, where's this guy? It's Monday, you know, like he's not picking up. He calls me. He's like, listen, he's like, you know, with a very shaky voice. He's like, listen, I think I woke up blind today. Like, you woke up blind? He's like, I'm driving to the doctor's. I'm like, first of all, don't drive if you're blind, all right? Second of all, you know, what's going on? He's like, I don't know. I didn't take my medication. He's like, I'm like, listen, man, this is not going to work out. He cuts me off. He's like, you will not fire me. He's like, you can't fire me. I was like, all right, watch. You know, that's fine.
Okay.
He's like, go to the doctor. He goes to the doctor. And I'm like, this guy, I don't want to see him. I don't want to, you know, that's it. I'm like, bring back the laptop ASAP, all right? Exclamation.
Yeah.
Nowhere to be found. Don't hear from him from 2 days. I'm like, all right, that's fine. We'll call the cops. We'll go to his house. He stole company property, right? You know, I was a day or two after that. I'm like, all right, I got to call the cops. But I'm hanging out, taking phone calls on the couch in the office. The door, like, just, you know, pushes open. This guy rolls in with the laptop in a bag, throws the laptop. He's got glasses, like his hood on, throws the laptop on the table, like storms out. Then I look through the window. He screeches out with his car, just disappears, you know? Like, what the hell? You know, things like this make me think, like, why am I in this industry? You know, like, what the hell, you know? So.
Hire slow, fire fast.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Damn. You've had a lot of those
Oh,
experiences.
yeah. I'm trying to think of anything else.
That's wild, dude. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to handle that.
So things like that is like, right, you're trying to do business. You're trying to go on the right path somewhere, trying to build something
you're trying
stable.
to help this guy. Like, he was shady from the get-go, and you were trying to help him.
And just in general, like little curveballs that get thrown,
Yeah.
you know, in the industry like that. It's like, really? Like, is this like everywhere in any other industry? You know, like, am I the only one dealing with this? But then you hear all kinds of other, you know, just funny stories.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Man, I can't imagine, like, handling all those problems with employees. And drivers, too.
Driver's the biggest thing, right? Because these people are on the road. So, you know, you're always, again, paranoid about, like, okay, are they going to hit somebody? Are they going to...
Sure.
Oh, I've got another story. This is... Can I check my phone real quick?
Of course, go for it, yeah.
I keep hearing you're not recording, right?
We're recording, but we'll edit it anyhow, you know. I have a videographer. We'll get that all done. Hey guys, this episode is brought to you by Warp. Peace of mind for your middle mile. Oh, Remarkable? Do a commercial for Remarkable? Well, I was saying. Well, wait, what? I was seeing it all the time on Instagram. Yeah. Hey guys, this.
So right now, just to share with you, we're talking about the crazy industry, bro.
Yeah,
So I've been here for how long?
Go microphone. Oh, so you've been here for an hour.
I've been here for an hour, right?
Yeah.
So in that hour that I was just talking about how crazy the industry is, I have about 25 messages on Teams. You know, this guy's a lunatic. This guy that. This guy's asking for this. Tire blowout. Driver wants us to pay for his lunch. Driver needs to go see his doctor. Wants to go home an extra day. Like, just, you know, nonstop. There's always something, you know.
Crazy.
Yeah. But talking about crazy stories. So, let me think real quick about how to say this. Oh yeah, this is a little bit crazy. It's a little long though. You want me to tell?
We got time. Let's
right.
go.
So I decided, you know, I was working with one driver for a while. I decided, hey, listen, this guy used to have a fleet of his own. He used to dispatch his own trucks. You know, we have a great relationship. You know, you don't see this type of stuff very often, right? Super, you know, organized guy. Brought almost his whole like male side of the family, you know, to the company. His father, his neighbor, his brother-in-law, his cousin. He brought people to the company, you know. So great guy. I'm like, listen, you know, I think this guy would be a good dispatcher, right? So I always look at potential in people. Hire him as a dispatcher, right? Well, I'm like, listen, you're going to come up here. You're going to train. He lived out of state. So you're going to train in the office with us and one of our head dispatchers. Then you'll go home, right? Plus, for those 3-4 weeks, I'll use you to move some trucks and trailers around. You know, you got CDL because that, you know, taking it there to the shop, this, that. So he's like, great. You know, works for me. So he comes, starts training. I give him, you know, one of his first drivers. And this driver had already worked for us for quite some time. So I'm like, I'm just going to switch you to a new dispatcher. Everything will be great. And this driver, you know, he was kind of on the brink of us letting him go just because he was a little unstable, you know, to say the least. He was very emotional. You know, a couple of times he's called us crying because he was going to be late for pickup or delivery, or that he got stuck an extra hour. So a little bit, you know, question marks there. So I'm like, listen, I'm giving you this guy, dispatch him, see how it is, and then maybe we can put him over one of our dedicated runs that we do with the reefers out of Chicago, kind of going all over the place.
Sure.
And he's like, all right, great. You know, give him the guy, wait a couple days, you know, picks up, delivers. Then we give him this load from a customer. He's at the shipper. Long story, okay, short, on the pickup side. He could not pick up the load on time and deliver it on time. There was no way. He overslept. He was at the pickup still the next morning. He had to be in New Mexico at night or the next morning, 1,300 miles. Not going to happen with this guy, all right? So, I'm kind of freaking out. I'm like, listen, we got to get this load delivered somehow. I'm talking to this other dispatcher. He's like, hey, his dispatcher has a CDL. Put him in a truck. They can drive his teams, you know?
Yeah.
I call the guy. I'm like, listen, buddy. Like, you got to do this. I'm going to put your dispatcher in the truck with you, okay? So you guys can safely and timely deliver the load. And then I'm going to buy your dispatcher a ticket coming back to Chicago. Everything will be fine. He's like, well, do I have an option? I was like, you really don't, right? I mean, you know.
Sure.
Let's do this. You know, you get an extra bonus. You know, we need to keep this customer.
Sure.
So, you know, do what it takes. So this guy, it's like, all right, I guess my only option is to walk back home to Texas. I'm like, I guess so, if that's what you're thinking as an option, you know? So he comes back to the office. The dispatcher gets in the truck. They start rolling towards New Mexico.
Sure.
All right. I'm going to leave a lot of stuff out just because there's a lot of details. But long story short, you know, 5-6 hours into them driving together, and this dispatcher's tough. He's not, you know, he's not one to mess around with, let alone. So if he's afraid of what I'm about to tell you, it's like, you know, what the hell is going on, you know? Not expected from this driver. Mm-hmm. So he's like, yo, boss. He's like, this guy is, you know, capital letters, unstable. All right, he is unstable. I'm like, what do you mean he's unstable? He's like, he starts driving, you know, he's texting me a lot of this stuff as it's unfolding. He's like, he has something in the truck that he should not have. All right, that's like a huge no-no.
What was it?
He's asking me, I'm just going to leave it at something. I'm going to say he had something. I'm not going to say what it is.
Okay.
He had something. He's like, he's telling me, you know, go in the back and take some if you want. So the driver dispatcher is like freaking out. He's like, this is illegal. What the hell are you doing? You're putting the company at risk. You're putting yourself at risk. Sure. And he's like, don't tell me what to do in my truck. And that's not his truck. It's my truck. All right.
Yeah.
So he's like, all right. So, you know, the dispatcher sensed this guy's not okay. You know, you don't know what he can do. Right.
Sure.
So the driver's driving. My dispatcher's in the back trying to sleep. All right. This guy's blasting music, turning it up as loud as possible. The dispatcher's like, yo, man, I'm trying to sleep here, you know? Yeah. He's like, don't worry about me. He's like, don't worry about the music in this truck. He's like, stay in the back. You know, he's like, okay, you know? So he's like, I hear like pounding and I hear like just somebody hitting something. He's like, I peek through. This guy's just like mad about something, just smashing the dashboard, you know? He's like, all right, we got a problem. I'm like, listen, I'm already seeing this escalate. And I'm like, we can call the cops. You can beat his ass on the truck as one option, right? We can kick him out. I'm like, you know, there's different ways we can do this. You know, there's the right way to do it, and then there's, you know, we can escalate it. I'm like, we don't want to do that. Let's, you know, he's like, listen, I'm okay for right now, but he's like, at the first stop, he's like, somebody needs to get out of the truck. I'm like, you know, safety's first, like, especially with this, you don't know what can happen, right?
Sure.
We'll get this situated. So I'm thinking with my safety manager, how do we handle this? You know, how do we fix the situation? So the next day rolls around, right? Because they got to deliver the next day. And I'm on the phone, you know, with the dispatcher while he's kind of away from the driver. He's like, listen, he's like, I was driving in the middle of the night. This guy kept popping in and out, holding, like, you know, behind his shoulder, like, listen, man, one of us needs to get out of this truck. He's like, you shouldn't be in this truck. He's like, this is my truck. Like, so he was kind of feeling like, you know, like my boss, you know, the dispatcher's with me in the truck. So maybe he had a sense of, you know, trying to show off his ego, you know, whatever it was, this guy was not stable. So the driver's, you know, my dispatcher's driving, and he's like, this guy's like, you shouldn't be in this truck, you know. The dispatcher was on the phone with his wife saying, hey, like, I'm kind of excited to be back in a truck for a little bit before, you know, going back to dispatching.
Sure.
He's like, why are you excited? You shouldn't be excited. He's like, this is my truck. He kept saying, my truck, my truck, my truck. So he felt like somebody was invading his space, you know. But that's not normal. Like, you know, what are you doing? So long story short, I said like 3 times already, long story short. He gets to the receiver. They get to the receiver, and the driver is thinking that I'm going to buy the dispatcher a ticket back. You know, but the idea is for them to go to a truck stop and, like, just kick this guy out.
Sure.
Say, listen, like, hand over the keys.
Yeah.
You know, what you're doing is illegal. It's unsafe. It's like that. There's no, you know, no pity for that type of stuff. So I'm like, listen, safety's first. If you feel like you need to throw some hands because this guy's, you know, self-defense, do it, you know. I'll defend you in what way I can, right? This is not cool. You feel threatened at this point.
Sure.
This guy's saying, you know, something's going to happen. One of us has to get out one way or another. These are threats, you know.
Yeah.
Plus, he has something in the truck he should not have, right?
Yeah.
So the dispatcher handled very well. You know, they got to the truck stop, and he's like, listen, I had to report this, this, and this. We've got, you know, the police on hold. Get your stuff. You got 30 minutes. You know, you need to get out of here, you know. We're gonna report this. If you don't, you know, you potentially lose your license, and, you know, no one's gonna want to hire you with that type of stuff on your, you know, when we report it.
Sure.
So he, you know, he got his stuff back, and he, you know, got an Uber, left wherever he needed to go. Our dispatcher delivered the load safely, came back. He's like, I have never experienced something like this in my life. He's like, this guy just went like a complete 180. You know, he's like, I've driven, I've been into, you know, so stuff like that, man. It just makes you like, what the hell?
You have a library of stories.
Oh, yeah, a lot of stuff.
This is why it's so important to, like, be able to, like, do, like, the mental health, like, checkups and stuff. Like,
huge.
Mental health for drivers is unbelievably
important.
Yeah.
It's crucial, especially right now.
Definitely. Well, Daniel, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Appreciate it.
It's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Freight Caviar Podcast. If you enjoyed the podcast, or if you didn't, leave a review. Let me know what you think. I appreciate any feedback. If you'd like to have more Freight Caviar content, go to freightcaviar.com and subscribe to my email newsletter.